Hey friends, welcome back to another episode of Entitled People. We got some more Reddit stories to check out today, so be sure to like and subscribe and let's get into it, guys. Parent says it's not our business what her son does on the community garden, so we let him get up to his neck and crap. Literally. On our community garden, teams of kids from the local school come to help, and it's often the case that they turn up on a Saturday morning as well. They're almost entirely well behaved, which is a good job as there's not a lot we can do about bad behavior, beyond a stern voice. Although one time a lad kicked one of our rabbits, so a girl brained him with a shovel. Rough but effective justice. There's this one lad who came for the first time last week. Don't know him, but we made him very welcome. He only lasted half an hour before storming off in tears, after his third telling off for spinning around and around holding a tool and then letting it fly off at head height. This morning, his mom, I assume, came with him. I saw him point out my friend and me, but he didn't ask to join in, so after shouting hello, we let them be. After about 10 minutes, he started wandering, and my friend shouted to him, "Don't go around behind the greenhouse, mate, it's not safe around there." Well, his mom had obviously been waiting for this, because she went 0 to 100 in 2 seconds flat, demanding to know, do we own this garden? And if not, what business is it of ours where her son goes? We explained we just want him to be safe. And she replied that she's quite capable of taking care of that herself, thank you. Fine, on you go. Off he went exploring behind the greenhouse, which is not safe because it's the compost heap, which is very unstable, and the muck mound, which is a giant pile of horse manure we get delivered every autumn. By the spring, the inside is all nice and rotted down, and the outside is very hard and crusty, and less strong than you'd think. After a minute, there was a crunch, a squeal, and I think we did very well drag him out saying "I told you so," or breaking into guffaws. He was absolutely black from chest height downwards, and although well-rotted manure doesn't smell really bad, it is very thick, and sticky and slimy. His mom grabbed him without a word and they headed for the gate. He started bawling as soon as the surprise wore off. My friend said, "Would you like some bin bags to spread out in your car?" And to her credit, she did say thanks, and we handed them over. I wonder if we'll see them again next week. My boyfriend gave himself an allergic reaction to get rid of his boss. When my boyfriend Jake was 19, he had a job at a smoothie shop. He worked with 3 other people and his boss. We'll call him Michael. Jake's one stipulation before getting his job was that he could not work with peanut butter, since he is allergic. He'll break out in hives, and if ingested, his throat will swell. Not bad enough for an EpiPen, but bad enough to need Benadryl. At this job, they made protein balls, and it was made with peanut butter. One day during a rush, Jake was at the sink, when Michael threw a big bowl of leftover peanut butter in the sink, and told Jake to wash it. Jake argued and told him he can't touch it and that he'd have a breakout. Michael argued with him and told him to do it. So Jake, being the stubborn bastard he is, said, "Okay, fine." Roughly 5 minutes later, Jake's hands and arms were covered in hives. So once his arms had visible hives, he took a picture and sent it in the work group chat the owners were in, saying, "Can someone cover my shift? I'm a tad under the weather," with pictures of his hands. He walked out before anyone responded. Someone covered his shift, and the owners came in with the girl who covered the rest of his shift to yell at Michael. The next day, the girl told Jake about Michael getting chewed out by the owners. The owners called Jake and apologized for what happened. Long story short, that along with stealing money from the registers and being creepy with the high school girls, Michael was fired. Jake quit shortly after, just because. For people commenting that was stupid and allergic reactions get worse, yes, he's well aware. He was a spiteful teen with no sense of self-preservation, just pettiness. It's just a little possible death. The owners liked him and gave him an espresso machine when he left, so he says it was worth it. No, he wouldn't and won't do it again. Neighbor's complaint to the city backfires. We have a next-door neighbor who does not like us for no apparent reason. This is a vacation home for them, and we have never said a single word to or interacted with them ever. They seem to think we live in an HOA, which we don't, and call the city code enforcement on us over their perceived shortcomings in our lifestyle. We let our yard pretty much grow wild, whereas theirs is meticulously landscaped and professionally tended. We have 6-foot walls between our houses, so they can't see much of anything in our yard without trying, such as climbing a ladder to take pictures, to send to the city to lodge a complaint. The city investigates, finds nothing wrong, and closes the complaint. The last complaint happened a few months ago when we were doing some legally permitted construction. The neighbor calls the city. They come out and find no issues. Apparently, he was upset with this outcome, and he made more complaints, of which only one was, quote, valid. He complained about our vehicle parked on the next street not having a current registration sticker. Parking enforcement came out and put a sticker telling me to fix the problem or move it within 3 days. Apparently, my current license plate sticker had been scraped off. While out front, I noticed my neighbor's new motorhome parked in front of his house. It's illegal in the city to park a motorhome on the street. Normally, I could not care less about it, but this seemed like an opportunity I couldn't pass up. I asked the parking guy, what about that thing? He said there was no complaint about it, so I said, I am complaining. I watched as he took pictures and wrote out the parking ticket and tow order. I then watched as about an hour later, the tow truck eagerly hooked it up and whisked it away to their impound lot. That guy deserved it for sure, an eye for an eye really. If you're going to be that annoying with constant complaints trying to get someone in trouble, complaints that most of the time are unfounded, then you can't be surprised when there's some retaliation. And also OP just kind of briefly mentioned that their license plate sticker was scraped off. I'm assuming it was probably the neighbor that did that, and I think that's what OP was implying as well. It'd be a bit too much of a coincidence for someone else to just happen to pull off OP's registration sticker for no reason, right before the neighbor decides to call parking enforcement. My grass or your cul-de-sac? I live on a dirt road, and while I own it, 3 other families have the right to drive it, so as to allow them to access their property. All good. Where the road curves, over time, gravel is built up well off the road, and visually made that portion look like an abandoned parking lot. A sad sight next to my forest of trees and our sparkling river. In the blazing heat of August, I toiled. I scraped up the gravel, watered to force more gravel up to the surface, scraped, hauled, raked, and sweated. My neighbors shook their collective heads as they saw me working. 3 dump trucks of soil arrived, raking, smoothing, and finally joyful planting. A small flowering tree, hundreds of lily bulbs, daffodils, grass seeds, and bushes have replaced the gravel wasteland. Now my phone rings. Mr. Wonderful, the neighbor at the end of the road, wants to talk to me. We meet at my work site. He wants me to explain what I am doing. Fine, I explain. He tells me my work is a waste of time. Fine, I am okay with trying. He informs me that the whole community uses that area as a turnaround. The whole community is him. No one else would ever need to use it. I am still okay. I tell him that if he needs to drive on my grass a bit to turn his boat around, I am okay with that. He asks why I did not tell him what my plans were. I come up with some version of, what? Why would I check with you about planting grass on my yard? And oh, by the way, you have driven past me doing this work for days. If you were so interested, you could have asked. But now you know. I am planting grass. The mask dissolves. His 6-foot-plus self hops off his golf cart and growls. No, I'm going to tell you what you are going to do. Mr. Wonderful informs me that the land is not legally mine, as he is claiming it through adverse possession. I laughed. I am 5'1" and was totally terrified inside, but I am not going to cede an inch. Towering over me with spit flying, screams that I can expect to be in court facing a judge, because he is not giving me his property, and the threats keep coming. By now, other neighbors have come over to witness the fuss. He keeps at it. When he stops for a breath, I said to everyone, I am so glad you are all here. I am planting grass on my property. If you are called to court to testify, please do not worry about offending me. I will not be angry. And regardless of the outcome of the case, if any of you need to encroach on the grass to turn vehicles around, you have my full permission. Except for you, Mr. Wonderful. You are never to touch my property. My daffodils came up this spring, the lilies are sprouting, and no court summons has arrived. So I would assume that if this guy was even half serious about wanting to sue OP, as soon as he consulted an attorney, he would have been immediately told that he doesn't own the road at all. It's just an easement for him to access his own property. He may have the right to drive on it, but that doesn't mean he owns it at all. The mouse story, with pictures. It was autumn 2019, shortly after the first frost, and our cat brings us a mouse. We take a picture and report to maintenance. They check out the apartment, see no poop, set a trap, and tell us to let them know if it happens again. A few nights later, we get another mouse. And then the next night, we get 2 more mice. We call maintenance. They claim to have found the issue behind the stove. They patch it and leave. We get another mouse. They claim there is an issue by our washer-dryer and they patch that. Then there are more mice. We request a professional exterminator daily, and they refuse. Eventually, maintenance gets sick of our calls. We've never got a mouse in our trap, and there's no mouse poop. The only evidence of mice is our pictures of 16 mice with our cat over time. So the maintenance guy comes up with a clever idea. He says next time we get a mouse, we need to keep it and bring it to the main office. They can study it and figure out where it's coming from. My husband and I are well educated and know that's just not how mice work. The landlord doesn't want to pay an exterminator and they don't believe the issue is as bad as it is. A night or 2 later, we get a mouse. We put it in a garbage can in the tub until morning. Unfortunately, the little guy doesn't make it through the night. In the morning, we bag our friend and head to the leasing building. The apartment manager is there, as are several families waiting to begin a tour of the complex. We explain to our landlord about the now 17 mice, and how we're now supposed to personally deliver each mouse to her. She looks at my husband horrified, grabs her cell phone and heads to a back room. We can hear her screaming at the maintenance guy about his request. In the meantime, we're explaining to her potential tenants the issues we've been facing. A couple minutes later, she returns, tosses the mouse in the garbage, and says they'll be paying a professional exterminator to take a look at the building. The exterminator found hundreds of entry points, which get taken care of. That was the last mouse we ever had in that apartment. That's going to be it for today, guys. Thank you for watching. Be sure to drop a like, I'd really appreciate it, and also subscribe to the channel for more. So I'm out of here, take care, and I'll see you next time.